Creative Writing Department at Austin Community College. How many of you knew that we offer creative writing classes at Austin Community College? Okay, so they're small and we offer a lot of genres, so that's partly why I'm here, is to let you know that we have classes. And if you have questions about them, please talk to me after. I'd like to thank Malvern Books, Joe and Fernando for having us. And how many of you, this is your first time in Malvern Books? Okay, so this is a really important bookstore. If you get a minute to cruise around, you'll notice that there are no big name bestsellers in here, because they only carry independently published books. And that's a really important thing in our world right now, so that's great. I should also thank all of you for braving the germs and coming out tonight. Thank you. Please come in. There's some open spots. If you don't mind, if you please turn off your phone so that we could be in community with each other, that would be fantastic. And we do this every month. So we have a featured reader who reads for about 15-20 minutes, and then it's an open mic afterwards where folks have 4 minutes to share something they love, which might be their own writing or it might be somebody else's writing. Because I'm in the classroom all the time, I'm like, are there any questions? Okay. So let's see. I'm really excited for our reading tonight. Come on in, y'all. There's some spots here. I'm going to try to get it right. Tommy Mouton. Please, when you come up, we say your name properly. Thank you. He's a Southern writer and a writing coach. He's a former John I didn't think I was that nervous. A former John Steinbeck Fellow. His work appears in Auburn Avenue, Reed, and Callaloo. He's a dynamic dramatic reader, and his work has appeared in venues hosted by KKUP 91.5, Out of Our Minds, Poetry Radio, Sacramento Stories on Stage, LitQuake, Center for Literary Arts, Poetry Center, San Jose, and a host of others. He was born in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and he was raised in the unincorporated community of Moss Bluff. And I think we're going to hear a little bit about that tonight, because you're going to be reading from the memoir, right? Tommy recently, as of July 2018, relocated to Austin from San Jose. Welcome, with his wife and 3 children. He currently teaches creative writing and composition at Huston-Tillotson University. He received an MFA from San Jose State, and he holds a BS in urban forestry from Southern University. I think that's so awesome. Writers need to know everything. It seems like you're trying to cover it. In his spare time, he enjoys lifting weights, and in a weekly run, and as of this past December, oh wait, I didn't read this right. What am I trying to say here?
I'm running now.
You're running now. That's what he's trying to emphasize. So I'm super excited to hear his memoir. Thank you all for being here. How many of you are getting extra credit? Right? Own it. Yeah. We're really excited that you're here. Please help me welcome Tommy Mouton.
First things first, this has to down a little bit. Howdy. Howdy. Thank you all for coming out tonight. With everything going on, this is a great showing. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I am Tommy Mouton. As Charlotte said, I am from Lake Charles, Louisiana. I spent so much of my adult life, though, on the West Coast in Northern California. And so it is just so good to be back home in the South. I first want to thank you, Charlotte, for this opportunity. I want to thank Nicole, Becky, Adina, ACC, Huston-Tillotson, and a special shout out to Michael Knoll. Michael brought and introduced me, Charlotte and I, so I am very grateful to Michael and the Writers League of Texas. I'm writing a memoir. Sometimes that's a project that we said we wouldn't write. I've written everything else. I, of course, tried to fictionalize much of what is now in the memoir over time, being too afraid to write about what I'm writing about. I'm writing about sex abuse. I allude to it in these pages. Nothing is graphic, but it did happen to my siblings and I, and I am trying to make sense of it all in this project. Growing up in Louisiana, there were always some characters, and there was this one man who would come to the community, and he just seemed to have he could outbeat death, seemingly, and we wanted that. Dealing with some of the things we dealt with, we of course wanted to look at other folks and see how they were living so that we might live a fuller life. And so you'll get some of that. We also, having gone through what we were going through, thought that maybe we could just run away and get away and start life anew. And so we would eventually, in the summer of 1987, take a trip to Los Angeles, where we hoped that potentially we would stay and remain and be free of the traumas that were happening back home. But that did not happen. We returned back to Louisiana. But I'm going to go ahead on and start. I'm going to time myself. If you hear me speeding up, I'm just trying to honor time. So these are chapters. As I transition, I'll give you the title name of the chapter. This is Dead Roger. I needed an antidote. Emotionally, I was struggling. Although the worms never showed themselves, I still every now and then felt infested. Dirty, dumb, heavy, all of which I know could have made wonderful Smurf names. Football having seemingly become an inherent extension of ourselves, needed to be supplemented with another elixir. It was 1987. I was 9. I was wrapping up my 3rd grade year. I was aware that I was traditionally one of the oldest in my class, and still, per my grades, I believed I knew far less than my younger peers. I wanted beyond the seemingly tangible God to whom Father, Reverend, and the others believed, the God to whom I was supposed to believe held my life in the palm of his hand, a new Savior. The deacons and the song suggested that he would be a fence, a hedge of protection around me and us. But it seemed that the fence and the hedge had always been breached. Perhaps, yes, I desired of Jesus a sidekick, a John, or perhaps like Batman or Robin. For I, like brother, needed my very own strong man, since we knew it would never be our Father, what with his illness and his perpetual absence. As my self-esteem worsened and the stomach pains returned, and just when I had all but stopped going to school again, I, like the other neighborhood boys and girls, was introduced to Dead Roger, a walking dead man, a real-life Southern vampire. Dead Roger was a mechanic who often came to Chickville to fix Father and Mother Reverend's ailing Buick, being paid by Father Reverend in cash and beer. With the deepest voice that rivaled Deacon Jet's, Dead Roger, it had been rumored, carried death's antidote in his pockets or in one of his motorcycle's saddlebags, where he, like that of an outlaw, kept a sawed-off shotgun and a very large Crocodile Dundee-like hunting knife. Though the guns and knives garnered much intrigue, Dead Roger's coffin, which was rumored to be where he nightly slept, intrigued us the most. We knew that he wasn't really a vampire, lest the Louisiana sun burn him to smithereens, but for us, he seemed a true life mystery. He, to our young eyes, was a giant, though he wasn't yet 6 feet tall. Many of his teeth were tobacco stained or missing. He often wore a welder's cap And we knew when he welded, he would have worn no welding apron, gloves, or chaps. His muscles bulged. It had been further rumored that he would often barehanded reach into a barbecue's hot coals, retrieve a coal, and without haste, without a grimace of discomfort, light his hand-rolled cigarettes. Having come over to Junior Sinelli's one day to visit our mother, where he often proposed to her, as the two of them sat on the front porch drinking, with a fire ant pile astir and with the poisonous ants crawling and biting atop his bare feet, dead Roger did not wince, scratch, or shoo them away. Dead Roger, I learned, had proven to be far more cunningly proficient jester than I. He was, though, in Louisiana, a sort of mountain man. He relied on himself. When in need of money, he knew how to create work. And when hungry, he knew how to hunt and fish. Perhaps it was Dead Roger and not Daggoo that Melville hired as his harpooner. Dead Roger, though, once told us of a day that he, hungry, with no money and not in the mood to hunt or fish, animals per se, used his pirate's wit to get a meal hand-delivered. A certain woman who lived in his neighborhood had, like others, deemed him a crazy man. He had been in his front yard attempting to keep his hunger at bay. The woman surfaced, and Dead Roger asked her if she had ever known a man to eat gravel. Gravel, the woman asked. Sure, the best eating. Rocks get just as tender. Man, you crazy. Sensing the woman's interest, Dead Roger asked her if she had potatoes and carrots, onions and celery. In his large pot, he gathered whole handfuls of gravel from the road and placed them in the pot's boiling water. A smile broke across the woman's face, and she was thusly hooked. You really gonna eat them things, huh? The woman returned home to retrieve the crazy man's ingredients. When the ingredients had boiled down with the aroma wafting about, the woman could not wait any longer. Roger, you go on and eat that gravel now. You ain't said nothing. Dead Roger reassured her, stirring his pot. But before it's done, I'm gonna need one more potato. Roger, the woman said, I got places to be. One more potato. Dead Roger pleaded, stirring his gravel stew. The woman returned with a potato. They waited. See there? Dead Roger said, retrieving half a potato from the pot. That ain't no gravel, Roger, the woman hissed. But them is, Dead Roger said, pointing at the ditch's edge where the gravel, still soaked, lay discarded like some woman's stolen chrysanthemums. So that we might be entertained, and so that he might further prove that he indeed held death's antidote, Dead Roger this day showed up to Chickville riding a shabby brown go-kart. What piqued our interest most was that the go-kart, seemingly assembled only moments before, had no brakes. This day, free of the romance that he once brought to the neighborhood aboard horse and carriage, Dead Roger met us on Telephone Road, claiming that he had something to show us. What he got? The men fussed, holding to their 32-ounce cans of malt liquor. Man, that thing don't have brakes. How he gonna stop it? Hell if I know. Our chests and guts filled with anticipation. We watched Dead Roger take the brakeless go-kart slowly around the curve where Telephone and Morrow Roads met. I'd only ever witnessed such festive excitement those late summer days when Mr. Henry David hosted his annual trail ride. Men arrived with their trucks, horse trailers, and most coveted horses. There was food and Zydeco beneath a large tent. But amid the excitement, death seemed to always loom. And by the time the trail ride would come to its denouement, for those others of us awaiting the return of those trail riding folks, word would get back that some man had lost his horse on some trail. Colic, the folks would talk. And having been around horses so much, we knew what it meant. That a man would have to escort his beloved horse home to be buried or cremated. Revving the machine's engine as if he were drag racing, Antron Brown at the helm, Dead Roger awaited his invisible sportsman tree of lights to turn green. We boys could contain ourselves. The horses in an adjacent pasture even seemed to watch. How you think he's going to stop it? Think he's going to make the curve? If he don't, he's going to sure need his coffin. He should have wore a helmet. Dead Roger pressed his foot against the machine's pedal. The engine growled and howled. Man, that man's crazy. The men still stirred. He gonna kill himself. Dead Roger made the curve nearly on 2 wheels, heading east on West Telephone. The cart seemed to top out at 40 miles per hour, and to prove that death had no reins on him and perhaps never would, Dead Roger, our very own Evel Knievel, with the quickest tug of the steering wheel, turned the go-kart and threw himself atop the asphalt and tumbled about the day like so much lumber out the back of some man's pickup truck. Sunset Limited. Like he often had, Dead Roger vanished. It would be months before he would show himself again. Although I had seen him cheat death, pick himself up off the asphalt without nary a scratch, resurrected, I still craved his antidote. I wanted to, like Dead Roger, vanish and reappear better, healed. And perhaps that was part of it. Perhaps that is why Dead Roger often left and did not return for some time. He was perhaps going to a place, his very own bat cave, or somewhere deep into the swamps like Swamp Thing, where he could regenerate, sleep amid his coffin, and return stronger. Not long after Dead Roger vanished, I and my siblings got our chance to go to someplace new to regenerate, someplace where they knew nothing of our elephants. It was the late spring of 1987 now. In a few weeks, my Aunt Belinda, my mother's youngest sister, was to be married in Los Angeles on the 13th of June. Granny Susie had sent for us. We were to ride the Amtrak, a nearly 3-day trek from Lake Charles to Los Angeles on a stretch of rail called the Sunset Limited, deemed the railroad's southernmost route between New Orleans and Los Angeles. It runs nearly parallel to I-10 West. That first morning, we awoke and made our way to the dining car. Mother had set aside enough money, though only for this one morning, for us to eat in the restaurant on wheels. We were beside ourselves. The country outside the windows sped past. The hills rolled and climbed into the sky. No more was our world of swamplands below sea level. The hill country of West Texas kept us marveling. Look, look, we shouted as we unfurled the silverware from the fancy cloth napkins. We placed our orders, ate tasty pancakes, eggs, and bacon. The yogurt, however, which we had never before tried, was, we thought, too sour, as we had expected it to taste more of strawberry, for which the packaging suggested. I repeatedly wiped my tongue with my napkin, drank water, and ate the pretty orange wheels, peels and all, trying to stifle the yogurt's taste. Susan disliked the yogurt so much that she vomited, and for the duration of the train ride did not feel her best. Mother was the only one who enjoyed the yogurt. She possessed, of the two of us, Susan and me, a more adventurous palate. Dale, though he did not like yogurt either, was more likely to eat some of Mother's more exotic dishes. For we remember those days when she lugged in the 10-pound red bucket of chitlins into Junius and Nellis, cleaned the intestines, the smell rife as some new death, cooked up greens and cornbread, and once the chitlins had cooked for seemingly half the day, she ate them as though they were some tasty cassoulet or Aunt Evelyn's famous stuffed bell peppers. In the wide open spaces, there were no more long leaf and loblolly. Once in Sanderson, Texas, called the Cactus Capital, we marveled at the cacti standing amid the desert as long ago wanderers. We'd only known them in our cartoons and movies. I'd heard how they stored water like we secreted the mongering. After we marveled at the Rio Grande River, left underwhelmed that the river seemed as wide and as deep as some of our neighborhood gullies, we awaited the loudspeaker's direction to gaze at Sierra de Cristo, mountain of the Christ King, with Christ thoroughly berobed hanging from the cross atop the nearly 5,000-foot mountain. We once awake the next morning, Dale and I talked about old West gunslingers who would have frequented New Mexico. Like Mother, we were lovers of Westerns. Regardless of the state of race during those Reconstruction years, we were enamored with the white gunslingers. Their bravado, which we saw in Dead Roger, made us feel invincible. West 84th Place. South Central Los Angeles was not at all what we feared. It wasn't merely a war zone. It wasn't merely Crips and Bloods drive-bys, though we witnessed one, and police chases. Nor was it gangster rap, which would take the nation and world by storm the following summer of 1988 with the release of NWA straight out of Compton. Though smoggy, the air felt light. There was no menacing humidity. We could play and barely break a sweat. The nights to us felt wintry. The blue sky seemed endless. If we smelled deeply enough, we could smell the Pacific salt. The planes overhead, heading to LAX, kept us looking skyward. Every day we became a bit more content traversing Granny Susie's yard and the corner stores with the neighborhood boys. In those days, Granny Susie lived in a heavily burglar-barred white two-level duplex at West 84th Place and Normandy Avenue. She occupied the lower level, while a cousin of ours occupied the upper. To prove ourselves, Dale and I sought to keep up with those California boys. We had no problem running and jumping. They took well to us, and we took well to them. One boy was so talented when it came to his style of play that I wanted to be just like him. He could climb and flip with ease. His primary talent was fence flipping. He would stand atop a 4-foot-tall chain link fence and turn, or cut, as we call them, back flips. Do it, he dared me. No, I said. I didn't tell him that I had retired from flipping after the day on my elementary school playground when I didn't get enough height and slammed headlong against the bare earth. My neck, I thought nearly broken. Man, I thought you said you were from the country. I am, I assured him, but our fences ain't like these. What? We got barbed wire fences, I told him. What's that? Like a jail, some other California boy offered. Yeah, I said, something like that, to keep the horses in the pastures. They'll cut you. We don't flip off them. The boy stopped insisting that I flip off the fence, though my argument was rife with fallacy and would never hold up anywhere beyond the neighborhood front yard. The boy, whom I will call Fence Flipper, still hoped to initiate me, to welcome me to California. And if I had hoped to represent Louisiana well, I had better devise a more foolproof plan. In between our initiation, we told of our Louisiana adventures, about how each spring there was a section of pasture and fencing that we, like honeybees, were attracted to. The pasture and fence belonged to Pa D, our neighborhood's griot, a plumber by trade, a man who taught all of us how to care for horses and, when necessary, how to bury or burn them, how to spread lime over the grave to keep the scavenger animals and the smell at bay. Along Pa D's fencing, seeking the Japanese honeysuckle, we like hummingbirds would hovered. We pulled and pinched at the white and yellow flowers, seeking their nectar. After pulling the stems with the golden bubble of sweet nectar, like those men in their rolling papers, we ran the flower stem across our lips, tasted nature's kiss with our tongues. As though he had been tallying it all up, Fence Flipper still knew that I had yet to do anything that might further solidify my credibility or bear truth and witness to the manner of adventures I had partaken in back home in Louisiana. So, a day before my Aunt Belinda's wedding, with Mother and Granny Susie having still spoken, I followed Fence Flipper up the stairs of Granny Susie's duplex. Atop the balcony, I, wide-eyed and of nervous breath, took in the neighborhood's skinny palm trees, which I'd often confused with coconut trees, believing that palm trees were only found on islands. I was not able to, in those days, name the majority of the neighborhood trees, but there was at West 84th Place and the surrounding vicinity, ficus, sweet gum, magnolia, jacaranda, and one of my favorite trees, Chinese elm. The duplex's street was a mix of single-family bungalows and multi-family apartment buildings where the neighborhood boys lived. While I took in the terrain, Fence Flipper wasted little time. I bet you won't do this, he said. What? He straddled the balcony's railing, and as if without thought, He jumped like throwing himself from a ship's deck into water, landing atop the ground with a martial artist tumble for show. Your turn, he said from below, grinning earlobe to earlobe. The other boys waited. They eyed me suspiciously. My nerves were getting the best of me. The new terrain had seemingly put a root on me. Every year I climbed high into our neighborhood's pear tree to do my share of pear picking. I had swung madly over the gully's waters, holding to thick vines. I had jumped from the oak trees at home. There, though, where stars were born and destroyed, I was off kilter. I did know, however, that I could not fail the boys' test. To fail would mean that my country life was not as interesting as his city life, and perhaps would reveal and birth a new elephant. So to continue to speak of our Louisiana adventures would become moot. I also knew that I could badly injure myself. I had remembered a neighborhood boy who had once climbed atop a gas meter. He, unlike fence flipper, was not naturally gifted at flipping. Atop the gas meter, with cousins and friends watching, the boy hurled himself into a flip. And having caught no height, arc, nor distance, he landed head first like a bomb against the gas meter. The fire trucks and ambulances were called, and he was hauled off, his head badly in need of stitches. Okay, I said, I'll jump. I straddled the railing like fence flipper. I knew I would not merely jump down as he had, though. Since he did not set any ground rules, like that game of horse we played on basketball courts where exactness mattered, I would do it my way. I sat against the balcony's ledge and placed my back against the railing. Nerves gripped me, but I held to my poker face. You can't jump like that, a boy said. Yes, I can. In that moment, it did not dawn on me that the boy had a point. Jumping and dropping were, for such a stunt, very different. It was, though, too late to change. I was zeroed in. You want us to count? Fence flipper asked. No. I had already silently counted to 3. And instead of jumping or leaping or dropping for that matter, I was falling to the ground below. I hit the ground with a disastrous thud, landing squarely on my behind. I lost my breath. It felt as though I had broken my right foot. Though Fence Flipper and his friends laughed heartily at my attempting to pull myself up from the ground, my trying to control my breathing, my beating back the tears that sought to well in my eyes, I had represented well all Louisiana boys. Dead Roger would have been proud. And with my own earlobe to earlobe smile, I limped proudly into Granny Susie's home, marched past their elephants, and gave thoughts, far more than I previously had, to the idea that we would remain in Los Angeles and never see Junior's and Nellie's place or Father Reverend ever again. Thank you. Any questions?
Where are you in the memoir? How much have you written?
About 2/3,
Yeah.
2/3 of the way, and hopefully, yes, I'm going to. My plans are hopefully finish this first draft this summer, and then tidy things up before I start shopping. And if any of you have ever shopped a book, yeah. I'll probably get a little grayer in that process, but I can tell you this, what I am going to do is I'm just going to trust what I have done, or what I have written, and allow that to be enough. But of course, a little differently than I have with previous projects, I am going to push. So for those of you who you feel that you want to write, you feel, of course, you want to do other things, you will be rejected, okay? And I tell you, it has nothing to do with your talent level. It has nothing to do with that. We talk about agents, and agents have their different niches, that which they prefer, and you have to kind of remember that. but continue. And that's, for me, on my previous projects, that was kind of where I dropped the ball. I would get those 15, 20 rejections, and instead of going back to work, working really hard on them, I would put them away, tuck them away, and say, hey, maybe some other time, and then I would start on a new project. But with this project, this memoir, it lives in the spirit, and I don't think I'll ever be able to kick it, so I have to do what I have to do. Any questions, though?
Do you read out loud as part of your process?
Oh, I absolutely read out loud. I do. I have to hear it. And as you know, you will, nothing will be perfect, but as you are trying to capture perhaps the syntax of things and hear yourself, hear that voice, it helps. But two, you're going to miss some things, and so it is always good to have another set of eyes read your work. And that too is something, as you're getting ready to shop things, go ahead on and let any and everybody read your work. They will, of course, be critical, but allow them to be critical within reason. But take that feedback and do what you see fit. And I think, though, always stay moored to the idea and know why you are creating, why you have sought to write or express yourself. And I think hanging your hat there, that's part of my half of the battle of getting over the hump, of just trusting what you do and believing in what you do. And so,
Yeah, I'm just curious about how far the memoir will take you through your life. How old will you be when you decided to stop the memoir?
So the memoir will end my senior year of high school.
Okay.
And so I'm writing now through my middle school years. This part I read tonight actually happens in the first part, or the first third. And so it will end. I was fortunate to stand on stage one night with, I guess, the incomparable Maya Angelou.
Oh, yeah.
And I was using words. And of course, that was before I really started writing. And I stand before you today still trying to make sense of things via words. And I think that's the testimony or the testament to, I think, this journey that I have been on. And of course, to run into people like Charlotte, I wouldn't have ever assumed or guessed that our meeting would turn into this. So again, I am just, again, very grateful, and I appreciate your generosity.
Can you say a few words about Mr. Gaines?
Okay, Mr. Gaines. So absolutely, I have been kind of memorializing Ernest J. Gaines since he passed away in November. I learned so much about writing and about Louisiana, having read most everything he's written. And I think it's, of course, important that we read and attempt to write. But he was a man of few words. When I did meet him, it was for him to fulfill a promise to me that he would send my then manuscript of a novel to his agent. And we talked, and I, though, never was able to meet him face to face. And I always go back to that, of course, when I got off the phone with him, I immediately wrote and tried to just bottle it all up. But I think it's important to, of course, to be a fan of art. And those whom you believe are doing it the right way, attach yourselves to them. And I've just been, again, proud to, when I was writing, I was just so proud to read his work. And then, of course, living in California, I was proud to be from Louisiana. And just quickly, those of you who are going off to, especially if you're from the South, and you may have a little Southern twang, and you may write about things that others are not writing about, you have experiences that others do not have, and they are authentically you, or true to the place that you are from, keep that. I knew her while in my MFA, a friend. She was, I think, from Serbia, and she had attached herself to writing as if she had spent her whole life in America. And the minute she started writing about her homeland, her career took off. And I think absolutely trust who you are, trust what you do, be proud of where you're from, and always just try to tell the truth in your writing. So again, just thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.